apart the pieces you left. Don't you worry about it. Don't you worry about it.
Is Planetside 2 dying? I've been playing Planetside on and off since beta, and I've racked up around 3,000 hours of in-game time between my characters, between different servers, and most of it being enjoyable, some of it getting mad, and certainly a big chunk being salty. But what now for Planetside? Is the game nearing the end of its life cycle after so long? Do you guys feel the same, that the player base is decreasing more rapidly than it is gaining? Or is it just doing its yearly summer withdrawal for players who venture out from their dark basements of Planetside bliss to the outside world of people and stuff? For a game that was launched in November 2012, it's done an amazing job to get this far and still be somewhat alive. But why? What makes this game still active after so long? Well, this game is certainly a one-of-a-kind MMO FPS. It knocks socks off of Battlefield and Call of Duty in terms of size and scale of the fights. It has something that no other game has managed to match so far to date. It's intense, nitty-gritty future warfare game with both vehicles, infantry, aircraft, multiple bases, multiple continents, multiple factions. What more could you want from a game? I can't seem to get my head around Planetside being so good, so niche, so bloody awesome, yet the player base has only decreased as time has gone on, and certainly only increases around updates and double XP weekends. I can't remember the last time I had to wait in a queue to get onto a continent outside of these times. Now for me, Planetside is well ahead of itself in terms of what our computers of today are able to deal with, both graphically and processing power wise. With my i7 CPU, a 1070 GPU and 32GB of RAM on an SSD, I still struggle to play the game on ultra settings in a heavy fight. So where does that put you as a new player who wants to experience Planetside's potential and awesome graphics compared to the rest? Well, basically, if you want to enjoy all of the above, you're going to get wrecked. To stay somewhat competitive in this game, combined with good aim, good positioning and a good knowledge of bases, mechanics and handling of your weapon, one of the biggest things that will affect your gameplay and killstreaks is your graphics settings. You can no longer play with ultra settings and stay competitive because it will eat your FPS and most likely get you killed. Is this fair? Probably not, but unless you implement a PlayStation 4 type fixed FPS system, which I for one would be completely against, then it's going to stay that way. Most of the large infantry kill streaks that you see in videos and in game are mostly played in the lowest of the low settings. This allows you to benefit from better visibility, more maneuverability and quicker time to aim. As a new player, from your settings most probably haven't been optimized and you come up against a player like this, sometimes you may get a few kills, but most likely you will die over and over and eventually rage quit soon after. So what can we do to look at trying to entice new players? Well, recently a lot of new patches have implemented nerfs to vehicles that were so-called used to farm infantry. Vehicles can no longer use thermals to highlight infantry, only armour with threat detection optics. The same has been applied to aircraft. Splash damage has been decreased on a lot of weapons that were once used to farm infantry also, and long range weaponry has a much higher fall off now, so that the further away you are, the less damage the bullet does. This in turn has penalised the good player for having good aim, but allowed it to be more realistic and fair in terms of combat styles for a newer player. Sunderer proximity repair, that was once used to repair other Sunderers, has now been halved so that the battle bus mate has now been destroyed. However, the nerf doesn't apply to MBTs and other tanks alike. Now with the new updates on the PCS, it's looking that the armour is going to be nerfed considerably also, so that infantry have more survivability. Is this something that we need to be worried about? We could all think of this as a horrible change to armour, with tanks that can't one-shot infantry anymore and halberds which can't kill ammo packs, let alone anything else. But infantry has always been the core gameplay of Planetside, and it's also the easiest thing for any new player to get into. Vehicles have such a high cert cost to completely max out. It's not something that is easy for new players to get into, with not having access to the AP cannon from the get-go or max reload. Tanking at the moment is something that you need to unlock further down the line, with so many more important things such as weapon attachments to set into first. With the new Vanguard shield changes and driving capabilities, I think I probably welcome the new changes more than not, but for me, that's probably more for the idea that it'd be something new and different for it. But then again, I'm talking from a position where I've already Araxian the Vanguard, and I've had the enjoyment and capabilities of one-shotting infantry. For now, we can only speculate at this point of how much of a difference it will have, but with all the balance changes, it could take some time for it to hit live. For now, I welcome the new changes, if it will get more players into the game, or at least get them to stay. Before this update, we had the implant system. This was something that always frustrated me, especially having to replenish charges every time they ran out. So I for one was excited with the new changes to remove the implant energy and make the implant system work properly again. But as usual in true day rate game style, they got their fingers on it and implemented a system that is basically completely biased to certain implants. The entire group of implants should be equal drop rate percentage every time, but what we got was having a much higher drop rate on some of them and a hugely lower drop rate, for example the minor cloak, with a less than 1% chance of it dropping. The implant system has now been referred to as being easier to win the lottery than get the implants you want. This isn't a Korean MMO after all. Has this angered the veteran members who solely relied on Battle Hardened, for example? Well, of course it has. Has this led them to stop playing the game in hope that they'll change the system again? Well, of course it has. I was lucky enough to get the drop on Battle Hardened, but I've still not got enough ISO to bring it to max rank yet. I poured over 10,000 certs into the implant system and still not got the counterintelligence or cat-like. I spent 142,500 certs on the test server to see what the outcome would be, and I only managed to obtain one counterintelligence. Is counterintelligence really that OP that it needs to have a stupidly low drop rate? Quite possibly. The theory is that when you get shot at by various enemies, they all get highlighted on the map, like a Christmas tree. So does that give an advantage? Well, of course it does, or at least your team, but what makes it more OP is that only a certain few have it. We have no balance compared to the implants we had before, where everyone could get them regardless of the drop rate. Don't get me wrong, I love having 2 implants, and I welcome ammo printer because that's such a godsend as a light assault or a heavy for my playstyle. Even more so as an engineer and not having to run back to an ammo tower halfway through a fight. Yet everyone is now rolling sweeper or driving vehicles, which has basically rendered tank mines useless. So where as a new player does this leave you? Well, I can tell you, you're simply at a bloody disadvantage again as usual. You get 2 crappy tier 1 implants that you can't even unlock to max rank as you have no ISO, and you have to buy ISO from certs. Well, to me this makes no sense when you need the certs elsewhere as a new character. Each implant should have a cert cost involved to them, and the RNG boxes should clearly be labelled RNG and have a drop rates displayed for each implant chance in the description. Then if you're feeling lucky, you can always smoosh an RNG box, and if you aren't so unlucky, you can always have the option to save and buy the implant you need. Further to this, as a login reward or a reward for capturing a large base, you should be given either an RNG box to help balance things out. Either way, it would be nice to have a chance of free drops and being able to buy implants. This would be more balanced and fair in the basis if you are really unlucky, you can always just buy it. I'm sure we all know that someone that is always lucky and gets exactly what they want in the game. Just adds salt to your wounds. So let's summarise. The implant system basically is garbage. Poorly implemented, doesn't benefit anyone, even the veteran members, and fucks everyone over to an extent. Yet we don't have to worry about implant energy anymore, so that's always a bonus, or should I say the only good thing to come of this. But they are making more implants and adding them to the test server, so we can hope for more RNG, duplicate implants that we already have, and have to invest more certs into RNG boxes to get more duplicates to break down into ISO to save up to upgrade your implants. It's just one vicious circle. Seriously, day break games. Okay, enough of the salt, enough of the ranting. We've talked about poor performance, we've touched on elitism and potato graphics, we've looked into potentially game-changing armor updates on the PTS, and we've looked at the fuck you implant system, so what's left? Well, why don't we look into Zergin while we're ahead? Is Zergin something also that is killing Planetside 2? For me, I think so. There's nothing more frustrating than fighting against a huge ball of enemies that you can't do anything about. I mean, you may get 1 or 2 kills and get lucky and get a huge kill streak in a tower, but inevitably what happens mostly is you will soon die over and over and not make much difference to stopping the base timer. Constantly I see people complaining, and sometimes even myself, about overpop fights, mainly when it gets to the 70% overpop margin, when they start spawn camping with maxes and tanks, or even worse, when the defenders manage to get deployed Sunday up, they just swarm around it and start farming it for fun. You get the picture. All the shit that is basically so frustrating for anyone playing the game at any level, which either leads to rage quitting or rage pulling tanks to try and pop some enemies off from a distance. So how do we fix this? How do we make this enjoyable for new players and salty vets alike once again? Well, I'm going to leave the video here and bring up my ideas on how to fix this in my next video. I would really appreciate some feedback from you guys, and let me know in the comment section below if you have any other questions. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.